What's going on, Tamers? East here, and the Digimon Alysion closed beta is finally live, and the past day and some change that it's been out, that's pretty much all I've been doing is playing, and it's been a ton of fun so far. In this video, I want to give my early impressions of the game so far. Keep in mind, all this comes with the added caveat that it is still a closed beta, which means pretty much anything I talk about is still subject to change before the game's final release. But I think it's okay to use the beta as kind of a baseline of what we can expect from the game as far as features are concerned. I've gone through all of the beta's available features, and so with that, I'm going to touch on each part of them and give an overall summary of what I think that the game looks like right now. Actually, we'll start with that. So my biggest impression so far from the game is that it seems good, it seems fun, it just needs a little bit more polish. Most of that polish, I think, will come in the form of graphical or UI updates. Currently, as things stand, the UI features are okay, but they can definitely be tweaked to make the user experience better, as well as make the game just look better overall. One of the first places that I noticed this kind of thing was actually in the story mode, and I'm not going to spoil any parts of the story here, I'm just going to talk about like the overall presentation of it. And that is that when characters were sometimes interacting with each other, or there was like some sort of cutscene playing, the English sounded a little awkward at times, and it definitely feels like, as someone who has lived in Japan and kind of like knows what Japanese translated English sounds like, it feels like that sometimes. But then there are other parts where it's just wildly fluent. They really hit on all like the good points, and you really feel the depth of the characters. So what I mean to say is that going from really weirdly translated English to really fluent English is almost a little bit jarring. You kind of get whiplash based on like, wow, that character's really affluent, or like, what did they just say there? You get both parts of that. And while we're on the subject of the story, the beta makes available the first 2 chapters to go through, and this is more so as a way to teach players just getting into the Digimon card game how to play the game, as well as get you a little bit more familiar with some of the characters that are going to be in the story. Some of the locations may seem similar, so I think that's really cool, and if you've been a Digimon fan in the past, then you might like this as well. So next, let's talk about opening packs and actually getting cards. Once you complete the story, I believe the game just gives you some starter decks to use as a way to get you into the game and get you into the action very quickly. But you can also open up packs. Now, the packs can be bought using something called Digigems. Those are going to be, I guess, the game's in-game currency, and you can use those to buy, I think 100 Digigems is 1 pack, and 1,000 is 10 packs. And if you do a 10 roll, I think you're guaranteed like an SR or something like that. I have an entire video that I'm going to talk about the actual economy for the game, and maybe like how free-to-play friendly it is, and like what you can expect as far as like being able to build decks from the get-go. So that'll be in a different video. But I do want to talk about some of the other points of that, and that is the actual opening pack process itself. So you have a couple of ways you can open packs. The first is that whenever you log in, like a lot of modern games these days, it's like a daily free pack that you can just open. And from that pack, you can get pretty much any card that I think is available in the game at that point. So it's basically all of the sets combined in one huge pack. Each pack has 6 cards. For the folks over in the West, welcome to the Japanese version of the game, where we only got 6 cards in physical packs too. The game also has some other form of currency where it gives you like a clock, and you can use this clock to reduce the timer for your daily login free pack. And so I think it was 12 clocks to reduce it by 24 hours. I think each clock you use is 2 hours reduction on your current time limit. So if you have a bunch of clocks, which the game does give you by just going through all of the features and tutorials that it has, you can, I think, like reduce like 3 or 4 days immediately. So you get like 4 packs off rip. Talking about the packs themselves, it seems like they have added in currently the first 3 sets of the Digimon card game, so up to BT3. And there's no EX sets so far. I don't think there's any promo cards either, but what they have done is they've gone back through those sets and added in additional cards that weren't there initially. A lot of these cards are based on the characters and the Digimon from the story mode, while also maybe adding in a couple of other new cards as a way to maybe change up the game for the folks who initially played through those first 3 sets. And while I know it's a beta and it's only day 1, folks are already sweating on ladder. I've run into so many of the Rookie Rush decks that were super popular during the game's initial release, and going back to a time where Hammer Spark is not limited to 1 is, whew, I'm getting whooped. Let me know when they update the restricted list for this game too. Right now the pack opening screen is actually pretty bare bones itself, and so I expect them to make these a little bit more, I don't know, exciting. If you're trying to get that dopamine rush from the user whenever they open packs, right now you're kind of getting it, but the spectacle of it could be made better is what I mean. A little bit of UI spit shine definitely goes a long way. Something else that the game has I think not a lot of folks are talking about is the breeding mechanic. Now this is really cool, where it doesn't actually interact with any of the gameplay of the game, but you get to hatch a Digi-Egg, and every 30 minutes in real life you can evolve the Digimon that hatches from that egg. What happens is you can choose the path that it can evolve into as time goes on. What's cool is once you actually hit the max level for that Digimon, or the level 6, the game gives you a window that says exchange, and what you can do is if you hit the exchange button, you're able to exchange the Digimon that you have created for an actual card, but it's not going to be the level 6 always. It's actually a randomly chosen one between all of the different Digimon that you've gone through in that line. So for example, my first one was, I think, Pyokomon, Biyomon, Birdramon, Metal Greymon, and then War Greymon. And so when I did my pull, I got one of those as a random chance, and it was Birdramon. Honestly, I think they can really do a lot with this feature, where if they went in depth more and they allowed you to just raise the Digimon, and the better you raised it, the higher your chance was to get a good card, that'd be sick. And if you didn't raise it at all and it, you know, unfortunately died early, you'd only get the Digimon from like the line that it made. So maybe it died at level 4, you can only get to level 2, 3, or 4. Again, I know it's not core gameplay, but it is a really cool feature. So next up are the deck building features and the ability to destroy or disassemble cards and then synthesize new cards or create new cards from your disassembled card points. I actually had a lot of thoughts here, so I actually wrote a lot of notes, so I'm kind of going to go through these one by one. Deck building, I think, is in a really good place. There are some features that I like to see, but these are just minor tweaks overall. I was a little bit worried about how they were going to implement being able to put together whole decks and search through cards using like a mobile phone UI, but they ended up doing a pretty good job. Right now, you basically get all of your cards on the left side, and you get a little panel to sort and filter cards on the right as it pops up. And what you do is, all the cards you have in your collection on the left, and you can sort those cards using the panel on the right, using filter like level, color, set number, like virus, vaccine, etc. Right now, the way to add and remove cards from the deck is pretty simple. You just tap the cards if they're in the collection section, and if you want to take them out of the deck, you tap the cards in the deck section, and they'll just move them wherever they need to go. If you want to see more about the card in detail, like its effect text or, you know, its traits or something like that, you have to actually long press on the card itself, and then after like a second or two, it'll just pop up. If I'm being a little bit pedantic here, I kind of wish that those features were swapped, where I was hoping that if you just long pressed on a card, a window would appear that's saying how many cards you want to add or remove from the deck, and you could like hit like an arrow on the right side or left side to add the number of cards and hit the confirm button to actually add it or remove it from the deck itself. The sorting and the filter functions are okay. I think they are pretty good for what we want right now. They don't have any options for actually sorting through traits. Luckily, the first 3 sets of the game aren't that complicated when it comes to trait cards. I mean, there's like 1 or 2 cards that they've added in that do use traits, but I think for right now, the filtering and sorting is good for what they need. I will say in the future though, as the game currently stands, they're definitely going to need to be able to implement that in some way. One thing that the game doesn't have that I do wish it did is an actual collection mode. Right now, if you want to see the cards you own, you have to go through the deck builder screens in order to do that. And then it'd be nice if I just had a button where I could just click and it just disassembles all my extra cards after 4 copies, and I could just get the card points for those. Currently that exists only when you're opening packs, so if you don't hit the disassemble extra cards button at the end of your pack opening screen, then you have to do it manually yourself. Talking more about the cards, one of the things that I'm really not a fan of right now is the font that they decided to use for the English cards. If you take a look at the name text and like the trait text for each card, it's really thin and just looks really, I don't know, cheap is maybe the right word there. It just doesn't look great. A small experiment that I tried was I actually opened up the settings for the game and I changed the card language to Japanese. And I saw that the font they use for the English is also used as the Japanese font as well, and it looks way better when you're showing off Japanese characters. My guess is that they just use one font for both, and it just doesn't look great in English. Speaking about the actual card art for a moment, most of the card art is just ripped from the physical version of the game and just put into Digimon Alysion. And I think that's fine for most cases. They have added a couple of changes for parallel cards or super parallel cards in the Rosemon, if folks have seen that. Some of them are also animated, which I think is really cool. They've actually gone back to some of the older artworks and actually animated them. For example, I think like the D-Bordelmon is animated, the Machine Dramon is animated, there's a bunch of them. Like the Greymon is animated, or War Greymon is animated, I believe. So that's a nice little touch. One thing that I think is really weird and that I don't know how to explain is that all the card art is the same except option cards. Option cards, it seems like, and this could be a bug right now, all of the artwork for the option cards is zoomed in. So you only see like a part of the full card art for option cards, and it's usually just zoomed in on some Digimon's face in some way. If you've never played the physical version of the Digimon card game before, then you probably won't know or even care about this, but if you have been a player for a long time like I have, some of the cards that you remember from the past just look different. You're like, wait, is this the same card? I don't remember this at all. That's happened a couple times in my matches at this point. And finally, let's take a look and talk about the meat and potatoes of the game, which is actually playing against other people. Currently, outside of the story mode, I don't think there's any way to play like NPCs, so if you're trying to like test a deck between like an NPC or something like that, it's not technically possible. I don't know if this is a feature they're going to add into the game, but as it stands, you have to play against people online. Currently, the only version of online matches that are available are random matches, where you just randomly match up against someone else who's looking for a match at that time, and you can select your deck, and then you guys will play a game. The UI looks okay. I think it could definitely be improved a bit. If you played Master Duel before, then a lot of this will probably look familiar. There's even some spots that look like they are almost ripped from Master Duel, like right next to your leader's avatar. There's like a little spot for like a, I don't know, like a side character or something. I don't know how they got that or how they made it so similar to Master Duel, but it's there. Each game has a 20-minute clock, and I think each turn is, someone correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's a maximum 90 seconds you have in order to complete all of your moves for a single turn, with each of your like individual like actions, like selecting a card whenever you search through your open 5 to grab one, having a small timer of their own, which counts down a lot faster. And then my experience playing was that whenever you would reach 0 on that timer, it definitely happens with the game being as slow as it was in the earlier games, and a lot of people like kind of being unfamiliar with some of the options and the controls of the actual mobile UI itself. Both players just lose the match if the timer hits 0. The battlefield itself is pretty easy to follow, where they've got the decks on the right, you've got your trash on the bottom. You have to click into your trash to see what's actually in there. You don't see like whatever the top card is, it just shows like a recycle symbol. And on the bottom left is your Digi-Egg deck that you can open up during your breeding phase. And from there, the battlefield itself is just one long strip of cards. And right now, it was never an issue, but because Digimon has no limit on the amount of cards you can have in the battle area, I'm not sure how the game handles when you have a ton of cards. I did play a single game against a Shine Greymon player, and I intentionally gave them a ton of memory in order to see them just drop down Tamers, and with I think like 8 Tamers on the board, and some Digimon, it still looked pretty usable. I could see everything that they had, and it didn't feel too cramped. But that's about as far as I've got. If anyone else has found anything else, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to learn a little bit more about this, because I am a little bit worried about how the UI looks whenever you have a jillion cards on the board. One of the things that I was worried about was how not being able to see the actual sources of a Digimon or inheritance cards of a Digimon are. And the way the game makes up for this is that whenever you see Digimon on board, if it's just that card, it'll just show that card, and then you can click into it and see its effects. But if it has inheritance cards, it'll show a number on the bottom right side of the card, like ×3 or ×2 or ×1, to show how many source cards it has. And then you can click the card, and all of its main text will appear like at the top with like whatever the main text for that card is, as like just lines, and then the source effects, so it'll be like an indentation, and then it'll show the Digimon who gives that inheritance effect as like a little like inheritance square image of like the Digimon's face, and then whatever the inheritance text is. There have been a couple cases where I've just forgotten about what the inheritance cards were, or if a card even had inheritance cards, but I think that's more on me and maybe some growing pains from just day one. After the first couple games, I think I got the hang of it, and it's not really an issue now. The one thing that I don't particularly care for in the battles, and this is not even related to the battles themselves, it's part of the actual UI, like mixing in with the iPhone's UI, and that is the cards are shown at the very bottom of the screen, and sometimes if you're trying to like grab a card and like select it to put into the battle area, your entire screen will like shrink up to let you look at other pages. That's happened to me a couple of times. I think you'll see some in some of the videos that I might post up later. But yeah, I hope they can somehow like turn that off, or at least like make it so you have to like tap and hold in order for that thing to pop up, because it's kind of annoying. But other than that, I think the battles themselves are really fun. Going back to the old version of the game at BT3 is kind of like been a breath of fresh air, like a time where you couldn't play trainings or memory boosts. Really does shake up how the game is played. I don't know if this is going to be the way that the game is actually released, or maybe this is just for the beta where they only show off the first 3 sets. We're not sure if it's going to be all the cards in the game are available from the get-go, or they just start with the first couple of sets and then like they slowly release more and more as time goes on until they either catch up with the current version of the game, or they just are always like a couple of sets behind the current version of the game. I don't think we've got any info about the actual release schedules of new sets or how they're going to be done. One thing I'm also a little bit interested in is how they're going to distribute promo cards, because there is a section for promo cards in the game already added, but if they're not available in sets, then how do we get them otherwise? And so I think it's going to pretty much wrap this one up. So far the game is a lot of fun. It's unfortunate that I can't stream it. Please don't ask me why, because I don't want to implicate you too. Again, the thing that I can say here is that it's sometimes better to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, and I asked for permission. So yeah, I think that's gonna pretty much wrap this one up. My biggest takeaways, again, the game is really fun right now. I'm having a lot of fun actually just playing random matches online, trying out some of the new cards as well. I've made a couple of the new decks and just tried them out. My one biggest criticism here is that I hope that they give the game that really good coat of like polish to make it look great. And once you have that, I think you have a really, really good product in your hands. Again, if you're interested in what the economy for the game is going to look like, if it's going to be free-to-play friendly or not, or like how easy it is to actually get cards, I'm going to do an entirely different video on that topic because I have a ton of notes about my thoughts there. The current TLDR right there is actually cautiously optimistic, but definitely take a look at that video if you're interested in more. Anyways, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.